So I'm just cleansing the brows using Waxperts cleanser on a damp cotton pad, just to remove any traces of the client's makeup. Make sure the skin is nice and clean. And then I'm going to just brush up the client's brow hairs and just give them a little trim. Because some of the brow hairs are a little bit longer than the other, and I think this will give just, you know, an overall neater appearance for the end result of the brow. So just lightly trimming and then using the spoolie to make sure that that the hairs are sitting properly. If I need to trim any more, then I can, but it's just really to trim the longer the top of the longer hairs. I'm going to do the same on the other brow. So now I'm going to just show you the sparser areas on the brow where we actually need to avoid with the wax. We need to let those areas grow in. So at the top of the tail of the brow, you can see some of the hairs that need to be left to regrow. So we're going to just do a nice clean tidy up underneath and above. And we're going to let those hairs on the tail of the brow grow back. So let's check out the other brow. You can see that there's a little bit more of hair here on the tail of the brow, and it's a little bit fuller under the thicker section of the brow. So we want to try and match the bad brow to the good brow. Now I'm ready to wax the brows. I'm going to apply some Waxperts pre-wax oil to the client's skin. So this will create a barrier between the client's skin and the wax itself. So apply this obviously to the brows, but the surrounding skin where you're going to leave the lip of your wax for removal. So work the oil into the skin, and if you need to, then you can tissue off any excess with your tissue, because you just want to leave a nice slip and glide on the client's skin. So I'm just going to tilt the client's head to the side, and now I'm ready to bring over some Original Hot Wax using a facial spatula. I'm going to place my wax on underneath the brow, and using firm pressure just push those hairs down into my wax patch and leave my lip for removal just past the end of the brow at the temple area. I'm just getting some more wax to apply on the top of the brow. So really making sure to avoid the area that's quite sparse, where we want to leave those kind of really light fine hairs to grow back. So you need to be so precise around areas that you want to leave the hair to grow there. So now we're going to repeat the same steps on the other brow. So tilt the client's head over, and I'm going to get another piece of my Original Hot Wax and applying it on the lower section of the brow. Using firm pressure, push those hairs into my piece of hot wax and leave my lip for removal past the end of the brow in that temple area. So waxing on the upper section of the brow, firm pressure again, and leaving your lip for removal in the temple area. And you can see that the tail of this brow is slightly thicker than the other side. Now we're ready for removal. So using a good stretch, so one finger at the temple and one finger at the top of the piece of wax, and then finger and thumb and remove. And slide your finger over for relief. You can see that was great removal. Really, really good. And then the second patch for removal. So stretch above and below. Thumb and forefinger remove, and slide your finger over. So these patches are great for getting rid of the bulk of the brow hair. You know, your patches after this can be more precise and really achieve that kind of precise brow shape. So remember, your stretch is so important, above and below, and remove. You can see that the client's skin is like only slightly pink, not red at all. So reapply the oil. some clients' skin can absorb the oil a lot quicker than others, so just to always be double checking that you have that nice slip and glide on the skin at all times, and just always tissue off any excess if there is any excess. So our next section then is the centre of the brow. So holding your spatula like a pen, firm pressure, placing your wax on and then push upwards and leave your lip for removal in the centre of the brow. So now I'm ready to start perfecting the brow shape a little bit more. So my next patch is going to be under the thicker section of the brow. So place the wax on and paint it onto the hairs that you want to take. So this is where you have so much control with hot wax. So take your time to really, include the hairs that you want to in this particular wax patch, and always leaving your lip in that hair-free area. So we're going to do the same on the other side. So I'm just placing the wax on, using firm pressure, then taking my time to really include the hairs that I need to take in that piece of wax. And you can see now that we're starting to come into perfect the shape and the arch of the brow. So now we're ready to remove. So stretch up, thumb and forefinger, remove. So stretch, thumb and forefinger and remove. And the same on the other patch. So good stretch and remove. So now I'm just going to reapply some pre-wax oil to the client's skin to make sure it's protected throughout the treatment, and tissue off any excess that there might be. And now my next piece of wax will be on the upper section of the brow. Place the wax on and just using firm pressure, drag that piece of wax down and leaving my lip in that nice hair-free area that we've already waxed. And again, repeating the same on the other side. So once you place the wax on, firm pressure straight away to really embed those hairs into the piece of wax. So once the second patch is being applied, my first patch is ready to be removed. So thumb and forefinger to grip it and remove. And the same on the other side. So now I can see the brow is starting to take shape. I'm just looking to see where I need to tidy up. So I'm just going to cool the skin down with a damp cotton pad with some Waxperts cleanser. And I'm just assessing the brow and double checking, is there any hairs that I need to take, or do I need to trim any more? So on this brow here, there's a couple of hairs that are just lighter and finer, and they're affecting the brow shape. So I'm going to use the tweezers to just tweeze them away and make sure that the shape is nice and even and precise. If there was more than a couple, I'd go back with a small piece of wax to tidy them up, but a tweezers is fine here. On the other brow, however, there are a couple of hairs underneath the brow that are affecting the overall kind of precise finish that I want to have. So using a small piece of wax, I'm just going to apply the wax a little bit finer with firm pressure, just to catch those couple of hairs underneath the brow and get that nice straight line. I'm just checking to make sure that the hairs that I'm leaving right at the top of the brow is good enough to leave, because we know that we want to fill in that kind of sparser area of the client's brow. So now we're ready to remove the wax patch. So again, using your thumb and forefinger, a good grip and remove. And now I can see I have a more cleaner line underneath the brow. There's still one hair there that's bothering me, so I'm just going to get my tweezers to remove that. And then any other hairs that kind of don't sit right in the brow itself, I'm going to tweeze just to make sure that I'm happy with the overall brow shape and that it's as precise as possible. So to finish, I'm cleansing over the brows using a fresh damp cotton pad with cleanser and removing any residue or traces of the pre-wax oil. So we don't want to leave any oil on the skin. I'm just going to fill in some of the sparser areas for the client. She's normally fills in her brows, so I think this will be good to show her the sparser areas where we need to kind of leave alone and just let those grow in. And she's happy to work with me on this. So I'm going to do the same on the other brow, and we always use brow pencils in Waxperts so we can sharpen them for every individual client to make sure that they're hygienic and sanitized and safe for each treatment. So now I'm just doing my final check of the brows, just brushing through any excess brow pencil and making sure that the brows look neat and even, and I'm happy with them. There's a couple of hairs that I can still see that are annoying, so I'm just going to tweeze those. Now my last step for the finishing touch is to apply some mineral concealer to the underneath of the brow section, just to highlight the new brow shape and just to make it pop a little bit. So repeating the same on the other brow, so just lightly placing the concealer on the underneath of the brow. And the reason why we obviously use mineral concealer is to ensure that the product is safe for use on the skin post wax, and that it's it's not going to have an adverse reaction with the client's skin. So I'm just going to take a tissue and just to gently buff in any excess concealer, and using gentle kind of a tapping motion to make sure that the client's skin isn't any way irritated at all. So now we're all done with the brows. I'm just going to give the brows one final brush up to make sure that everything is sitting in place and both the concealer and the brow pencil are blended correctly before I show my client her new fabulous brows in the mirror.